Senate will proceed to the measure.
President, I ask unanimous consent the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, the motions to reconsider be laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate, and any statements related to the resolution be placed in the record at the appropriate places if read.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. President, I also want to join Senator Reid in acknowledging the co-sponsors of this resolution, and I'm sure this list will grow as our colleagues come forward and ask to be added. But Senator Johanns, thank you for joining me in this effort, and I want to give special thanks to Senator Mikulski. We know of her pride and her Polish heritage, and we know of her deep respect for the people of Poland and our shared grief over the loss to that great nation. Senators Kerry, Voinovich, Senator Brown of Ohio, Senator, and others who have joined me in considering this resolution. I come to the floor, Mr. President, with a heavy heart. I express my sympathy to the people of Poland, to Ambassador Kupiecki, who is here representing them. I shared a moment with him earlier this morning that when I heard the news of this tragic loss, back immediately to 47 years ago when we lost our president, John Kennedy, and what it meant to our nation, how devastating it was. This city ground to a halt on that day, and the bells began to peal in the church towers all across Washington every hour on the hour as our nation reflected on this great loss. It was a time of great sadness, as it should have been in our history, as I'm sure it is now, as people reflect in Poland. But on the morning of Saturday, April 10th, a plane carrying Polish President Lech Kaczynski, his wife Maria, and 94 other high-ranking government, military, and civic leaders crashed while traveling to a memorial service in Russia that was to recognize and memorialize the dreadful Katyn massacre. The tragic accident is a devastating loss to the nation of Poland and to their friends around the world. This photo that I brought to the floor shows literally thousands of Poles who gathered in Warsaw on Saturday evening to remember those that died. They were outside St. John's Cathedral in Warsaw, grieving for the loss of their president, so many leaders of their nation. The pain of this sad moment is felt around the world, but especially in the city of Chicago, which I am honored to represent. It is home to more Polish American families than anywhere else in the United States of America, and what a proud heritage they bring to our city, our state, our nation, and what a contribution they have made, and the grief that they feel today is a grief that we share. Yesterday, as I mentioned, my fellow senators joined me in offering this resolution. The United States and Poland share a strong bond of history, friendship, and international cooperation. Polish Americans have become leaders in all walks of life, and in the Senate, Senator Mikulski and others of Polish heritage have shown that their it continues to this day. We joined with Poland in our Revolutionary War, and we are so grateful for those Poles like Kazimierz Pulaski and others who stepped forward and joined us to gain our independence. When the time came many decades later, and Poland was seeking its own independence after the Solidarity movement, the United States stood by their side. We know that President Kaczynski was part of that effort, and we know that he was in fact interned in prison because he fought for the democracy in Poland. He was respected throughout his country for the role that he played and the leadership he brought to this modern, free, democratic Poland today. We have stood by Poland as the Solidarity movement grew into a strong, vibrant democracy. We have supported Poland's membership in NATO so that we are joint allies in an effort to defend the values which we share, and in the European Union, where they have become a modern economy, a major leader in Europe. Poland stood by the United States as well in our NATO efforts in Iraq and Afghanistan. As Poles struggle to come to terms with this week's tragedy, the United States will stand with them and will support their government as it works to overcome the loss of so many of its great leaders. President and Mrs. Kaczynski and their delegation were on a mission to try, so many years later, to close a deep wound to the Polish people of the Katyn massacre of World War II, where more than 20,000 Poles were executed by Soviet secret police and buried in mass graves in that forest. As the ambassador said to me this morning, that Katyn forest is a holy and accursed place, because now this tragedy is added on to the memory of the losses that took place so many years ago. Russia and Poland have begun to deal with this tragedy, a positive thing. Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin recently joined Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk at a ceremony marking that tragedy. Prime Minister Putin, the first Russian leader to attend that memorial service, said, quote, "We bow our heads to those who bravely met death here," end of quote. It was the beginning of the closure of a critical chapter in the history of those two nations. This is the beginning of healing, which is long overdue. Sadly, the Katyn tragedy has now been compounded by the loss of so many of Poland's leaders who were destined to head to this location in memory of those who had fallen. Aboard the plane were some of Poland's highest military and civilian leaders, the Deputy Foreign Minister, the chiefs of the Army and Navy, the President of the National Bank, and dozens of members of Parliament. Two prominent civilian leaders aboard the plane were Wojciech Severin and Anna Valentinovich. Severin was an artist from Chicago, an influential member of Chicago's Polish community. What a bitter irony that Mr. Severin's father died at Katyn, and it soon became his life's passion to honor his father's memory with beautiful memorials that he had built in the United States and in the location of the Katyn forest. And then he lost his life journeying to this memorial occasion. Throughout his life, he brought awareness to the tragedy. He led an effort in the Chicagoland area to construct a memorial in remembrance of the Katyn massacre at St. Adalbert's Cemetery in Niles, Illinois, which Polish President Kaczynski was planning on visiting in just a few weeks. Anna Valentinovich was a famous civilian leader and a former dock worker whose firing in 1980 sparked the Solidarity Strike that ultimately overthrew the Polish communist government. Due in part to her inspiration, Poland has emerged as a thriving, prosperous democracy since the end of the Cold War. Poland shares a state partnership program with my home state's National Guard, a partnership that's been in place since shortly after the falling wall. It is one of the many partnerships our Illinois National Guard has with former Warsaw Pact member nations. Since 1993, hundreds of Illinois National Guard members have participated in exchanges with Polish forces in cooperative efforts supporting the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan and other military training and exchanges. Among those killed in last week's tragedy are officers who are well known to the Illinois National Guard. Several troops in the Illinois Guard have served, officers who were on President Kaczynski's aircraft. These fine soldiers are in the thoughts of all of the people of Illinois and the 13,000 men and women of the Illinois National Guard today. On Saturday, I visited the Polish consulate in Chicago to pay my respects and leave my regards in the condolence book. The people were starting to flock to this site. People in Chicago driving with Polish flags proudly displayed over their vehicles to come to this consulate and express their own sorrow for this loss, to join in the long line signing the condolence book, and to leave flowers at the flagpole bearing the Polish flag right outside of the consulate. I have such admiration for the people of Poland who have endured so many trials and struggles. What has brought them through time and again are faith and family, and those two enduring qualities will help them as they try to cope with this massive crisis that is facing their country. As the ambassador said to me this morning, there is no doubt that Poland will emerge strong, that this government is going to be stable, that it's going to move forward, and he can count as well that we will be at his side and the side of the people of Poland as they rebuild their government and their nation from this tragedy. I urge my colleagues to join me in co-sponsoring this measure and support the passage of the resolution which we and I yield the floor.
Senator from Nebraska is recognized.
Mr. President, let me start my comments today by thanking the senior senator for